The English version about the Sahara. Alors, the Sahara, a rich traveled and coveted space. Introduction. Today, as the forefront of international news, the Sahara is anything but a neglected desert. This vast, dry and arid space is indeed at the heart of economic and political issues that are source of tension and conflict. The edge of the Muslim world, the interface between sub-Saharan Africa and the North Africa, rich in subsurface resources. This region, shared between 10 states, stir up internal and external desire and form the western tip of the global arc of crises. What are the factors of crisis in the Sahara? In what way is the Sahara a strategic space and therefore coveted by many international actors? A constraining region, but rich in resources of the subsoil, the Sahara a desert. 1. A vast desert space. The Sahara is a wide desert strip that stretches over about 8.5 million kilometers square, from the Atlantic Ocean to the Red Sea, and from the Sahel to the North Africa. A powerful anticyclone limits rainfall to 100 millimeters per year in the northern limit of the olive tree, and 200 millimeters per year in the northern limit of the crown. The driest area receives less than 0.5 milliliters of water per year, an average and temperature can reach 50 degrees. On this map, we can show the bioclimatic limit of the Saharan zone. Here, in green, we can see the limit of the olive tree, and in red, we can see the limit of the crown. The main hills and mountain range. Vast flat expanse rugged with banal and monotonous landscape form the bulk of the Central Sahara. They are separated from each other by dune set. The hills, the sun covering only 20% of the surface of the Sahara. There are also huge islands, such as the Ta-Seti in the southeast of Algeria, and some mountain range offer of volcanic origin, such as the Ogar, Algeria, the Hayat, Niger, or the Tibesti, Chad, and Libya, whose highest peak, the Emikusi, rise to more 3,000 meters above sea level. These massive, more watery, have long been privileged areas of settlement for the Saharan population. Sparsely populated, the Sahara is now populated by about 7 million inhabitants, for an average population density of less than 1 inhabitant per kilometer square. The Saharan space is divided between four main population groups: the Moor in Morocco, Mauritania, Senegal; the Tuareg, about more than 1 billion people, divided between 5 countries: Algeria, Libya, Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso; the Hutu in Chad, Libya, and Niger; and the Zaghawas in Sudan, Chad, Libya. The people of the Sahara. In this map, we can see the repartition, the distribution of the people of the Sahara: the Tuareg, Toubou, more and between two. This population, traditionally nomadic, pastoralist, trader, are now largely sedentary and urban. Their choice concentrated in oases and especially in cities that have emerged in recent decades due to the demographic explosion, the modernization of means of transport, commercial activity, and the action of the various governments to settle the Saharan population and better control the territory. The main cities are Nouakchott, capital of Mauritania, Adrar, Agadez, Tamanrasset, Seba, Janet, or Kufa. In this map, we can see the repartition of the city in Sahara. We can see Tamanrasset here, the city on the Nile, Nouakchott, and Tombouctou and Agadez. Tamanrasset is really in the desert of Sahara in Algeria. You see, we have pictures of Agadez, the aerial picture of Agadez, but rich in subsoil resources. The resources of the Sahara subsoil. The Saharan subsoil is extremely rich in various resources. First of all, there are minerals. Western Sahara produce phosphate, Niger and Mali uranium, Mauritania iron, Morocco and Mali gold. These deposits generate economic activities and financial rent necessary for the implementation of development policy, but also stir up the envy of the NTF in industrialized country as well as that a local politician and armed group. In addition, the subsoil of Sahara contains significant oil and gas reserves discovered in 1915s, particularly in Algeria, Libya, and to a lesser extent in Western Sahara, Chad, Mauritania, and Niger. These fields are exploited by national companies such as in Libya, the continent's second largest crude oil producer after Nigeria and Africa's largest reserve, estimated at about 46 billion barrels, where the oil industry is managed by the state-owned National Oil Company. Libyan oil is of high quality, inexpensive to produce, and close to consumption center. It provides 96% of the country's earnings and 95% of its exports. Resources in the north of Sahara, we can see on this map the resources of the north of Sahara. The green point represents the gas, the localization of the gas. In purple, we have the localization of oil in Libya and in south of Algeria. In the point, the red point represents the city industrialized for the exportation with refinery, and we can see on this map that all the gas and oil do the traject south and to be exported by the city of the north. On these maps, we have water and its challenge in the Sahara. The Sahara is a region with aridity, and the vast aquifer is a challenge for the development, because when you have access to the water, you can develop agriculture. You can see on this map that a lot of vast aquifer in Sahara since from west to east, we have the two big basins, the three big basins, the aquifer nappe of Sahara in Algeria, the aquifer nappe of Mosul in Libya, the vast aquifer in Libya too, and Egypt, the Bassin Nubien, and in the south, in Mali, the Daoudeni vast aquifer, and all of its vast aquifer are used and are used for the agriculture and for the domestic consumption in the city. What we can say it's finally the Saharan suboil is home to vast aquifer formed more than 10,000 years ago when the region climate was more humid. The aquifer of the northern Sahara, which occupy more than 1,000,000 km², mainly in Nigeria and Libya, contain about 31 billion cubic meters of water. The exploitation of its resource is a major challenge in terms of development, but also the environment. Indeed, the water from this aquifer makes it possible to supply city and coastal activity, for example, industry, tourism, agriculture, by pumping it and then deriving it, as in Tunisia or as Libya with the creation of a great artificial river. It's a gigantic hydraulic development that allows water to be pumped into the Saharan aquifer and distributed over the courses of the artificial river that cross the country from south to north for more than 3,000 kilometers. Irrigated agriculture perimeter have just been developed in the middle of the desert, as in Kufa region. We can see here the great river, the great artificial river in blue. Here, the great artificial river in Libya, the vast aquifer of Mosul, and the Nappe aquifer of Nubi. And with the pumping, the government, Libyan government could develop irrigated agriculture in its arid zone of desert of Sahara. In this satellite pictures, we can see the cycle, the green cycle, represented the surface irrigated for agricultures, and in yellow we can see the new development of the activity of the palmeraie, the oasis, in its last years. Now we have pictures. Excuse me, on the last diapositive I have done a mistake. It was not the satellite image, but schematic organization of the cycle of Kufra. Here we have the satellite image of Kufra. We can see the green cycle in the desert and the development of it agricultures. This aquifer recharge very slowly, but we have problem because its aquifer recharge very slowly and the water level has dropped by 25 to 50 meters depending on the location between 2050 to the beginning of the 21st century. Many natural springs around which traditional oases have developed tend to dry up the quality of water and soil degraded rapidly, salinization, mineralization of the water. Second part of its course is about Sahara. The Sahara is a space of flow and exchange. The Sahara, an African interface, an ancient space for exchange. Far from being an impassable barrier, the Sahara is in fact an active interface between sub-Saharan Africa and in the south and the Mediterranean country in the north. This vast continental sea has indeed been crisscrossed by multiple human and material flows, both legal and illicit, and this for several centuries. Despite the constraint and difficulty in crossing it, the disparity in resources between regions with contrasting climate have been a great attraction for trade. From the 9th century BC, trans-Saharan exchange developed, animated by the Phoenician and then by the Greek and Roman. From the Middle Age, the Sahara trade became caravan and as based on the use of the dromedary. The country of the south provide amber, cola, Guinea, pepper, skin, and especially gold and slave. North Africa and Egypt sell jewelry, horse, fabric, date, and wheat, while the Sahara supplied other regions with salt. This trade leads to the prosperity of nomadic merchants as well as states south of the Sahara, Mali, Ghana. Here on this map, we can see the trans-Saharan trade and major caravan route in the Middle East. We can see that this road uses the direction south-north and north-south and stop in there's Wele in city and oasis of the desert. An exchange space that is difficult to control. Many trade flows cross the Sahara today. The region is first and foremost a supplier of mineral and energy raw material, mainly to the industrial power of the North and Asia. Oil and gas pipeline bring resources from Saharan fields to the coast, where refinery, industrial hub, and poor infrastructure are concentrated, for example, in Azo and Skikda in Algeria, Sirte in Libya, Port Sudan in Sudan. In addition, a trans-Saharan gas pipeline project is expected to transport Nigerian gas resources to Algerian ports via Niger. 4,300 kilometers long, it is expected to transport between 20 and 30 billion cubic meters of natural gas annually and is expected to be doubled by an Abuja or Alger-Lagos highway, as well as a fiber optic line. However, the implementation of its project is now slowed down, threatened by the insecurity prevailing in Nigeria and the Saharan space. In addition, agricultural and manufactured goods are increasingly circulating through the desert, sold, livestock, groundnuts, and henna from the south, pasta, semolina, household appliances, mobile phones, and fuel from the north. This trade is developing thanks to the road and railroad built by the state of the region to open up the Sahara, integrate it with the rest of the national territory, and thus increase the control over desert area. City energized by this infrastructure play the world of commercial crossroad node in communication network in densification. These exchanges are partly legal and partly related to smuggling. Here we have a map about the Trans-Saharan Road and track. We can see usually can see the Trans-Saharan Road in green, and the Trans-Saharan Road do the same traffic north-south and use the city relay as Adra, uh, Seba, Kofa. Indeed, due to the difficult surveillance of the Syrian territories, the porosity of the border, and the high level of corruption of politicians and law enforcement, the Sahara has become in recent decades a vast area for smuggling and trafficking of illicit but also illicit products, for example, weapons, drug, cocaine from Latin America that transit through the desert to reach the European consumer market, human being, everyday consumer goods, cigarette, medicine. The process of its trafficking go into the comfort of armed group, terrorist group, and trading family. Here we can see the Trans-Sahara Trafficking and Trade Finance in April 2015. We can see here in yellow the bottleneck on trafficking route of strategic importance. We can see the cities of Agadez, Goa, Zuad, Kofa, and in the Darfur. We have the main word in green in excuse me in red we have the small arms supply route, the human trafficking in brown, in blue the major trafficking and trade route tax ban. uh, Militants. I'll let you to see if it's smart because it's very important. A space for transit and migration. If the nomadic people of Sahara are now largely settled, the desert remains a vast space of circulation for thousands of migrants, most often illegal. Originally from sub-Saharan Africa, seeking to flee poverty or conflict and reach Europe and its wealth, migrants tried to cross the Saharan vacuum to reach North Africa, Libya, Morocco, and Algeria mainly, before embarking on the crossing of the Mediterranean. If the human drama that constitutes that latter is now widely publicized, the Trans-Saharan journey also often crosses peril and suffering. It is usually done in several stages and can take several years. Here on this map we have the migrant system in Sahara. Along the way, migrants often settle temporarily at migrant hubs such as Tamanrasset or Agadir, Agadez, to work and save enough money for next step. Migrants spend several $100 to meet their daily needs, pay bribe to the authorities, smugglers, and journey. During the journey, migrants are sometimes abandoned by smugglers and sometimes even kidnapped and brutalized, tortured for ransom. The human drama of immigration is also Saharan. Three part, the third part, a space of tension and conflict, the Sahara creates. Border tension, 1. 10 independent states share the Saharan space. Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, Mauritania, Mali, Niger, Chad, Sudan. If the immensity of the desert sometimes make it difficult to control the border, they are nevertheless known and clearly drawn. Nevertheless, some state boundaries are still discussed, as between Morocco and Algeria and Eastern Sahara are not recognized, as if the case of Western Sahara. The territory, very large without definitive legal status since the departure of the Spanish in 1976, is claimed by both Morocco and the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic since 1991. Morocco controls and administers about 80% of the territory, while the Polisario Front controls 20%, left by Morocco behind a long security belt. Phosphates were sold as well as ore. Fear of the coast of the Western Sahara partly explained the loss of its actors. The United Nations is always present in the region to maintain peace. We have here a map about the Western Sahara, a disputed territory. In yellow, we have the part controlled by Morocco. In brown, we have the part controlled by the from Polisario. In red, we have the refugees camp Sahrawit, and in blue, we have the camp of the United Nations. Internal conflicts, some Saharan states also destabilized by internal tensions, such as between sedentary and nomadic people, between farmer and herder for the use water resource, between different ethnic groups, for example Tuareg in Mali, or between part of the population and the central government, as during the Arab Spring, started in 28 in Tunisia before affected Egypt and Libya. The spontaneous revolutionary movement in reaction to the increases of the cost of living and employment, the lack of prospect of social and professional advancements, the lack of freedom, and the corruption of authoritarian regime have led to the removal of dictators who have been in place for several decades. For example, Mubarak in Egypt, Ben Ali in Tunisia, and the regime of Gaddafi. Is it also in this country that the clash were the most violent and led to the area civil war between Gaddafi's troops and the insurgents of the National Transnational Council start, and it's it's in Libya where the conflict is really violent. The bloody repression of opponents, as well as economic and political interests, led the United Nations to adopt resolution establishing a non-fly zone and authorizing military strike against loyalist troops. The operations were carried out by French and NATO forces between March and October 2011. Despite the fall of Gaddafi, the return to peace has not taken place, and since 1914 a conflict opposed two rival governments. The internationally recognized one of the House of Representatives and its Islamist rival of the General National Congress, as well as several jihadist groups, including some affiliate with Daesh. The various economic, ideological, and nationalist issues are thus on the verge of imploding the country. In addition, they testify to integrate of the region into global geopolitical issues. Mali and Niger are also shaken by civil unrest, particularly related to the various Tuareg revolution that began in 2016. In 2012, fighting took place between the Malian army and the rebels of the National Movement for the Liberation of Azawad, which claims self-determination and independence in the region. This conflict is causing food difficulties for the population of the region, some of whom are taking refuge in neighboring countries, while ethnic nationalist consideration must be taken into account in understanding this conflict. The desire to appropriate mineral resources and the revenue they generate are also an essential factor in explaining them. In addition, the entry into play of Islamic groups, for example, ACME, in the conflict make the situation in Mali even more complex than chaotic. Here we have a map of the territory of the rebellion of the Azawad. Here we can see the territory reivindicated by the movement nationalist Azawad, and we can see here the principal fighting, and we can see that it's a region with a lot of resources, natural resources, for example, gold, yeah, and Mali, and uranium too. A region connected to global geopolitical issues. Since 1907, the Salafist terrorist group Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, born from the integration of the Algerian terrorist organization Salafist for preaching and combat into the Al-Qaeda movement, is particularly active in the Saharan zone. It is indeed conducive to the camouflage of a small mobile group, offer a multitude of refugees, and therefore make it difficult to identify and intervene militarily. The group, which originally sought to take power in Nigeria, now participates to the global jihad. Between 2003 and 2010, it multiplies the abduction in the Saharan Sahel zone of terrorist members of NGO employed of the FTN transnational enterprise group and demand ransom for their release or murder their hostage. From 2009, the region became a fortress of holy war dedicated to welcoming and training jihadists from the Maghreb and neighboring sub-Saharan countries. The ambition is, as is Osama bin Laden wishes, to create a new Afghanistan at the gate of Europe, a base from which to prepare the assault on the Maghreb coast and southern Europe. ACME also participates in the various forms of trafficking that are organized in the region: everyday consumers project, vehicles, cigarette, oil or fake medicine, weapon, drug, illegal immigrant. in order to finance their activity and the purchase of their weapons. The organization has thus become closer to the Tuareg rebel group present in the region, which, thanks to their knowledge of smuggling routes, serve as intermediaries for all network reaches to transit through the Sahara. The economic criminalization of the Sahara is therefore evolving toward a political religious crime for which smuggling is a means of financing. Here we can see the localization of ACME and the Tuareg rebel in north of Mali. We can see the same localization, they are in the same place. The Tuareg also sell hostage to the jihadists and sometimes help them to their action in exchange of their protection and support. This is how the Salafis support the MNLA separatists during their attack in northern Mali in 2012, before continuing the enforcing alone in the Mopti region the next years. This conflict provoked the entry into the war of France, Operation Serval, and mobile of countries of the economic country of West African state, ECOWAS, which managed to repel the jihadists. A ceasefire was signed in June 2030, but the region is still far from having regained its stability. As the historian and geopolitician Patrice Godin points out, everything contributes to making the Saharan space the largest area of instability and lawlessness on the planet. Geography. The persistence is not organized impoverishment of the Tuareg, foreign covetousness, political, religious extremists, and mafia. The intervention of external power testified to the geostrategic and geo-economic importance of its region, defense of economic interest, protection of national, fight against trafficking in illegacy projects and against international terrorists, limitation of illegal immigration, search for allied state. These are all issues make the restoration of order and security in Sahara an imperative for many states, including France, China, and the United States. For the latter, the Sahara is now front of war against terrorism, insofar as they believe that their own security depends on success on the fight against the Islamic. United States interests, however, are not limited to this aspect. The United States is also seeking to assert its presence in this region, both to counter the growing presence of the Chinese, diversify their source of hydrocarbon supply, and obtain raw material. They have thus largely contributed to development aid in the region, multiplying investment and significantly increased their military cooperation and presence. In 2005, for example, they set up the Trans-Saharan Counter-Terrorism Initiative with Algeria, Burkina Faso, Libya, Morocco, Tunisia, Chad, Mali, Mauritania, Nigeria, and Senegal, and established a special regional military command in 27, l'Africom. Here we have a short biography about this question. I let you to save its bibliography